Hi, I'm that Slavic writer guy, and today we're going to be talking about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's The Magic Flute, a two-act fantasy comedy piece in which the main character, a lost prince, sets out to rescue the love of his life who he has never even met once, only to realize that the person she needs rescuing from is not in fact the evil sorcerer who kidnapped her, but is in fact her bitch of a mother. To begin to find out why this pedantically preachy and slapstick bit of fluff is somehow wildly popular today, Gremo Opera. I am going to be frank here. I am not a fan of Mozart. Not his operas, not his music in general, none of it. The best description I have ever heard of Mozart's music is just a bunch of meaningless happy notes, which was actually said by a guy who loved Mozart trying to decry anyone who might think that of Mozart, but it's telling that that's the best description I have ever heard of his music. Like, yeah, pretty much. It is absolutely amazing that I am such a fan of opera today, considering the fact that the first two operas I ever saw were by the guy: The Escape from the Seraglio and then The Magic Flute. This one, which is an even worse offender. The Magic Flute premiered on September 30th, 1791, at the Theater auf den Wieden in Vienna, Habsburg Empire, as it was at the time. It is in the form of a Songspiel, which is really a lot more like what we would consider musical theater as opposed to opera. So it was performed at a low-brow theater from the outset of its composition. Mozart conducted the opening night of it, but then he subsequently quickly died thereafter. Um, this opera quickly became a success in the German-speaking world and then in Europe and around the world for reasons that elude me. But yeah, that's basically the composition history, other than to note that it was like a collaboration with one of his friends, Mozart's friends, both of whom were Freemasons, and therefore the plot seems to be centering around like the traditional sources of dogma being bad, and you should instead go for the newfangled forces of weird, kind of enlightened shit, which is good for being weird and new and enlightened and not the original dogma. Yeah, that's basically the extent of the Masonic philosophy that is said to be in this opera. There's really not much bones to it. So now moving on from the composition history as it was, let's get on to our cast of characters. First off, we've got Tamino, the main character in the opera, who is played by a tenor and is a lost prince who is told to go find the love of his life, Palmina. Then we've got Papa Gaynor, who is played by a baritone and is basically the half bird, half man kind of bumbling idiot that tags along with Tamino on his quest to rescue Palmina. We then got Palmina herself. She is the daughter of the Queen of the Night and mostly spends all of her time being a damsel in distress while being hopelessly in love with Tamino, even though she has never once met him. Then we've got the Queen of the Night, who is a very coloratura soprano and is the woman who sends Tamino on his mission to rescue her, only to turn out to be a total bitch by the end of the opera for reasons that the guy who she says is evil says she's evil, basically. We then got three ladies who are the helpers of the Queen of the Night and basically set out to Tamino and Papageno what they are going to have to do in where they're going to have to go and rescue Pamina in the first place. We've then got Monostatos, who is played by a tenor and is the captain of the slaves of Sarastro's Ratoon. Sarastro himself is played by a bass, and he is the overlord of the temple who the Queen of the Night claims is evil. For what we are about to see are very self-serving reasons indeed. We also have the three child spirits who are also sopranos and are basically just there because I guess the three ladies just got bored with shepherding Tamino and Papageno around, so they hand it off to these child spirits, whatever. And then we've got the speaker of the temple, which is the first guy that Tamino meets when he gets to the outside of the temple, not to be confused by parts for two priests that are with Tamino and Papageno and Palmina on all of the various trials that Palmino and Papageno have to complete in order to find happiness and love. Barf. So, with that being said, let's move on to Act 1. Act 1, Scene 1. We find ourselves on a deserted island which Prince Tamino has apparently become lost or stranded on for reasons that are never actually explained. He is being chased by a snake and is so afraid of it that he faints. And while he has fainted, the three servants of the Queen of the Night, three ladies, show up and kill the snake while remarking on what a hottie Tamino is. Tamino then wakes up and is surprised to find this bird guy, Papageno, dicking around on the island with him for reasons that are also never even explained. And Papageno goes on whining about how he is a bird keeper, but this means he has never been able to find a wife. Oh, that sucks. Pity him. Then the three Queen of the Night's ladies show up and they slap a padlock on Papageno's mouth when he lies about having been the one who saved Tamino from the snakes, because the three ladies actually did it. The then three ladies go on to show Tamino a picture of the Queen of the Night's daughter, Pamina, who they say has been kidnapped by this evil wizard, Sarastro. And they say that he will be given the hand of Palmina in marriage if he manages to rescue her from this evil guy. So Tamino falls immediately in love with this picture of the girl he has never even met and resolves to do it. And in order to help him on his quest, they give him the magic flute that will like make everything that's bad good on his quest. And they also give Papagenos these magic bells, which make people sing and dance and go away, also as a means of protection. And then they go, well, fuck this of actually guiding you. Now that we've said out what you're going to have to do, we're going to just leave and introduce you to the three child spirits who are our other, like, I guess, kind of minions, who are going to bother leading you all the way to Sarastro's temple. And so they all gung-ho get ready to set out on the journey to Sarastro's temple, singing forth together, ha 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 hum, in beginning of an aria that doesn't even bother to have fucking words. Act 1, Scene 2. We are now in one of the rooms of the evil wizard Sarastro's palace, and Palmino, the daughter of the Queen of the Night, is being dragged in by Monostatos, who is basically Sarastro's slave master, and he orders the lower slaves in order to chain her up so that he can have his way with her. But luckily, Papageno shows up, who has been sent ahead by Tamino just to help find Palmina, which begs the question, if he could just go ahead of Tamino like that, why don't the two of them just go together if it's that fucking easy to rescue her? But he apparently magically shows up before Tamino for whatever reason. I guess it's Mozart's mind and just go with it. So he sees Monostatos, and Monostatos sees Papageno, who is a bird guy, and they're both kind of freaked out by each other and run away until Papageno comes and returns to Palmino and says that he's been sent randomly ahead by Tamino in order to say that Tamino is going to rescue her. And Palmina is so goddamn happy to hear that she's going to be rescued by this guy, who she has never even seen so much as a picture of, immediately falls in love with him. And they kind of both sit around commiserating about how they're not married yet and how much Papageno wants a wife. Oh, boo-hoo, sad. End of Act 1, Scene 2. Act 1, Scene 3. The three child spirits have finally led Tamino to Sarastro's temple, promising that if he is, really steadfast and strong, that he'll, succeed in overcoming everything she has to do to rescue Palmina. So basically, at first, Tamino can't get into this temple that Sarastro rules because he goes to the one entrance on the left and goes to the one on the right, and then neither of that works. And so he finally has to go straightforwardly to the one in the middle when this priest guy shows up and is like, you'll be allowed into the temple, but you kind of not have to have a closed mind and be open-minded to it, because this evil sorcerer who the Queen of the Night said is evil, not so evil at all. And so he's only going to let you in if you agree to hear him out. And then Tamino finally hears Papageno, who magically kind of got to the temple palace before them, and they rush to meet with each other, and they find each other, and basically what happens is that Papageno and Palmino are recaptured by Monostatos and his slaves, but not to worry because Papageno rings the magic bells that he has been given, and they go off like a bunch of dumb shits, being like charmed by how wonderful their sound is. Um, and so they fed off these like slaves and the evil pornoist Monostatos. And then they hear the actual party of sorcerer Sarastros coming, and so they decide that they are kind of caught, trying to flee, and that the only way to get out of it is to tell the goddamn truth. And so the Sarastros actually shows up and is like, well, gee, no worries, honey, because I only kidnapped you because your mother's actually a bitch, and I actually kidnapped you because I want you to find happiness. And the way you are going to find happiness is that you are going to be betrothed to a man. Yay! And so Monostatos brings in Tamino, who has apparently also been caught, and the two see each other for the first time, and they embrace like the true lovers they are by not even before having seen each other once. And instead of punish the two of them, Sarastros instead punishes Monostatos for being such a perv and trying to force himself on to Palmina. And so basically, Sarastro says that, yeah, you can have this girl, but first you have to undergo my trials. And if you get through all of them, then Palmina will be yours and you will have learned the meaning of true justice. And so apparently Tamino agrees, and they get ready to go on the Sarastro's Trials of Enlightenment. Beginning Act 2. Act 2, Scene 1. They are now in front of the Temple of Knowledge and Enlightenment that Tamino is going to have to go through to fulfill his trials. And the Council of Priests of Osiris and Isis are there, who Sarastro is the head of, and why it's two ancient Egyptian gods, I don't know, other than the whole trials thing is supposed to basically be like a love letter in this opera to Masonry and enlightenment that you find through the Masonic practices of going from level to level within their lodges, from what little I know about Masonry. But reason why Osiris and Isis are there, I don't even know. It's just like, ooh, like ancient knowledge gods, this must be so new and interesting, so I'm going to evoke them without even trying to explain what the cults of Isis and Osiris are even about. But it's just cool. Egypt was a so we're invoking them as the head of Sarastro's council. So they basically are there, and Tamino announces that he is ready to go under the trials, and he asks for help from these new, newfangled, interesting Egyptian things to protect him on his quest, and Palmina as well. Scene 2, we are now have progressed to the courtyard of the Temple of Enlightenment. And the two priests lead Papageno and Tamino in, and they say that apparently this first trial is about staying away from the wiles of women, and that in order to pass it, they have to remain silent while they do. And so they agree to go in, and the three ladies from the Queen of the Night just show up magically up and try to scare Papageno and Tamino into talking to them. And Papageno, being the kind of bumbling idiot he is, kind of answers until Tamino tells him to shut the fuck up, and from then on they're good, and they pass the trial by just not speaking to them, and eventually the Queen of the Night's three ladies just give up and go away. Act 2, Scene 3. We are now in one of the palace gardens of Sarastro's temple, where Palmina is sleeping. And Monostatos shows up and gazes upon her while he's sleeping as the pervert he is, until the Queen of the Night magically shows up and basically tells Monostatos to get the fuck away from my daughter. So once the queen there, she actually asks Palmina about what's going on, and she says that Tamino, instead of fighting Sarastro, has agreed to join Sarastro's brotherhood if he can complete all the trials, and in that process win her marriage and her love. The queen, it turns out, is really pissed off because apparently Sarastro got the temple because her husband forgot to will the temple to her. So she wants it back, and she's just really stuck in the craw about this. And so she also is understandably pissed that the guy she's told to rescue the daughter from Sarastros is now kind of going along with Sarastros' scream. She says, well, okay, plan B. Daughter, I am going to give you this dagger, and you are going to have to kill Sarastro. And if you don't, I am going to disown you. And in the process of doing this, she sings what is the most famous, call it an aria, but the most famous parody of coloratura opera singing that there ever was, except it's actually composed by a real opera composer by a real guy. But anyway, it's famous. So here, let's listen to this parody of opera coloratura singing. So once the Queen of the Night is done singing that bit of coloratura kind of fluff, Palmino basically says that she's no way, no how is going to kill Sarastro, and instead begs that Sarastro forgive her mother, who is apparently an evil bitch, which she has now realized. She's also realized that Sarastro is really kind of a cool guy. He's the kidnapper and won't let her go to her mother earlier upon her insistence. So maybe this is just a case of Stockholm Syndrome. Yay. Act 2, Scene 4. We are now back at the Temple of Trials, and Tamino and Papageno are again led in by the priests for their next trial, and they again remind them that they must not talk. And Papageno, the blabbermouth, starts talking about how thirsty he is, and so this old woman shows up and gives him a cup of water. And he teases her about whether or not she has a boyfriend, and she says, yeah, I have a boyfriend, and his name is Papageno, which incidentally is your name. When he asks what her name is, she just kind of disappears. The three child spirits again show up, and they bring them food to, I guess, break up the trials. They also give them during the trials the Magic Flute and bells, which were given to them by the three ladies earlier in the opera. Tamino used them to summon Palmina, I guess, to this ordeal where they have to remain silent. And despite all of this going on, and apparently the bells magically bring Palmina there, he still has to remain silent, so he doesn't talk to her. And Palmina takes this to interpret that he is really just giving her the silent treatment and no longer loves him. And so she, basically becomes really sad and is like, oh my God, my love of my life, who I only have just met once, doesn't love me anymore. I have to start contemplating suicide. End of it. We are now apparently supposed to be at the pyramid themselves because WTF. The priests are once again praying to the oh-so-holy cult of Osiris and Isis that Tamino will succeed in joining Sarastro's quasi-Egyptoiserie order. And so Palmina is finally brought in, and Sarastro shows up and is like, well, now you've overcome the trial of silence, but now you have to go through the real bad ordeal. And if you go through this, you can't do it together with Palmina, but if you go through this, then you two will be wed. They bid their farewell to one another really sadly, should Tamino not come back. And then as they skedaddle off to the next trial, Papageno enters, ever thirsty again, and asks the priest for some wine. And when he asks that, the priest say, "Okay, here." And they, you know, this old woman. They bring this old woman out, and again, who once gave him the water in the previous acts, and he. They say that, well, we're here. We're giving you this glass of wine, but in return, you're going to have to agree to marry this old hag, or we will keep you in our prison forever. And so Papageno is like, "Oh fuck, what have I stepped into?" And he begrudgingly agrees to marry her, all the while saying under his breath that she's just going to stay around for as long until he can find an actual hot bride. But upon agreeing to this, this old woman turns into a young and pretty girl called Papagena. And Papagena's like, "Yeah, cool, she's actually hot." And then the priests are like, "No, no, not yet. You still have to undergo more trials before you're allowed to have her." Act 3, Scene 6. We are once again in a garden of Sarastro's palace, and the three child spirits have again shown up, and they basically comfort Palmina, who is desolate about possibly not seeing her love Tamino again, and is again contemplating suicide. But they come to her, and they reassure her that Tamino loves her, and that they will be together. Act 2, Scene 7. We are now back at the Trial of Enlightenment, and two men lead Tamino in for his next challenge, which is none other than to overcome the fear of death itself. And they petition once again the gods to give Tamino fortitude in this oh so terrible trial. And while they're doing that, Pamina shows up again from off stage, and the guys escorting Tamino on this are like, "Yay, dude, the trial of silence, that's over, so you can actually talk to her this time." And she says that, oh, so much about having Tamino undergo this trial by himself. Well, fuck it, now that I'm here, I'm gonna go through it with you. And the fear of death itself turns out to not be anything so much, because Tamino just plays his magic flute, and they walk through the trials of ice and fire and fear or whatever together. Yay! The one time I have seen this opera was as a 15-year-old, and it was a traveling troupe at Palm Beach, where my family was living at the time. And it literally was, "Yay, we have the magic flute. Let's walk through the blue background. Now let's walk through the red background. Oh, the fear of death is overcome. Yay, and it was so fucking easy because of this flute thing. Yay, happy." Blah. I mean, I was a 15-year-old and I was seeing this, and I was going, ugh, kill me now. Scene 2, Act 8. We are now in some garden where Papageno is feeling sorry for himself at not having been able to win his love, Papageno, formerly the old hag. But it's really not a big deal, because the three child spirits show up again and be like, "Hey, the Queen of the Night servants gave you those magic bells. After all these trials, none of that's actually necessary, kind of like it was with the magic flute overcoming the fear of death. You don't even have to do that. None of that matters. None of what has gone on in all of the previous Act 2 even matters. Just play your magic bells and she'll show up." And she does show up, and Papageno and Papagena are oh so enchanted by each other, and talking about how much future children and love and sex they're gonna have by making bird sounds and pecking at each other. Act 2, Scene 9. Outside the Temple of Enlightenment, Monostatos, the Perv, and the Queen of the Night have now conspired to destroy the temple, and that the Queen says that if Monostatos can destroy the temple, then he will actually be the one to get to marry Palmino. But because of magic, they are cast out into hell, the night, the darkness, whatever you want to fucking call it. And we're just going to go straight on to Scene 10, because it's really the same scene, where Sarastro shows up and announces that the night and its drudgery who sent Tamino on this quest has been magically balanced, and the new era of wisdom and enlightenment can begin, and we have to have animals again sing and dance to celebrate this wonderful triumph of light and bullshit that weren't even real trials that Tamino had to go on in order to rescue people from when characters can magically show up and talk to them faster than this guy the stage direction of this is completely so off that in my reading about it, I discovered that stage directors have to actually mutilate the music in this opera to make it fit into somehow logistically working. Um, but anyway, they go back into this wonderful things of the animals all singing and dancing again. Isn't this so happy and wonderful? End of the worst opera ever fucking made ever. Thank fucking God. So that, such as it is Mozart's The Magic Flute. As for why this opera is still so popular today, my guess is that it's just opera so dumbed down beyond the level at which it really is even opera and just like a bad parody of opera designed for people who don't know about or don't like opera, that it's put out as this thing that is most accessible for new opera goers. Which, I mean, for me, God, don't show this piece of fluff. Please, actually have faith in people's intellects and ability to enjoy music and emotional plots that actually make some modicum of sense. I mean, as I said, I saw this opera when I was 15 at the Kravitz Center of Performing Arts in Palm Beach. And it was the second opera I saw. The other one was also Mozart. And, to give it credit, I have to say that I was interested enough in both of those works to kind of go, wow, this is actually music. Other than all of the popular music that I've been bombarded with during the 90s as a child, which I never really liked. Then I saw this and was interested enough to continue. So that is The Magic Flute by Mozart, the piece of shit, such as it is. You can like my opinion about this or disagree with it or whatever. You can subscribe to this channel, like this video, do all the things I kind of expect you to do or don't, or whatever it is, because I am me and I am going to continue doing it anyway. And with that, na svidenia iz Slovenia.